Okay, you were expecting someone a lot taller, right? Okay. There are two things we hear and we think about when we hear that music. One is one of the most iconic screen villains ever created. And two, that music in itself means something bad is going to happen. That's it. There's those two things. I always like when I go out and talk about things, and my topic is about bullying, I want people to look at old things in new ways. So hopefully by the time you're done with the event today, not just my session, all the sessions, maybe you'll think of that music just a little bit different. Think that there's something good that can come from it. Now, George Lucas, of course, created Darth Vader. And when we talk about George Lucas, if you know anything about his history, he was a shy, introverted young man. And his autobiography, there's also a piece that was a young lady friend of his that helped him avoid the school bullies. So he was bullied. Also, I found this very interesting. I was doing some research and I found it on the web. Another fan favorite, Boba Fett, is actually an alias for one of George's school bullies. Anybody know that? Bob A. Fett. It's on the internet, so we know it's true, right? But it's also in a book. So the next time you see Boba Fett flying into the Sarlacc pit, you can say, "Bye, Bob." Think about that. Those influences of George's early years impacted him deeply. Why? Because we're all told, you get over bullying. And no, we don't. Every one of us carries it with us. We bury it and we carry it. Because every one of us has a story here. I can ask you, and I will, how many of you feel you have been the victim of a bully? Hands up. Sometime in your life. Okay. The more honest question is, how many of you have actually been that bully? You're not being honest. But you know what? I see a lot of the same hands over here, over there, and there's a couple over there. The same hands went up because here's the thing. There's a fine line between being a victim and a bully. And a lot of times we know that sometimes those victims become bullies themselves. So there's an interesting dynamic going on. I go to a lot of conferences to talk about this, and one of the things I keep hearing people is, we're standing on the edge of this bullying epidemic. And I said, oh, no. We're not on the edge. We're in free fall. And we've been in free fall for a long time because people just don't want to acknowledge it. And what do people do? Well, we do the best thing we can is we create Band-Aid parachutes. A Band-Aid parachute that is going to get us through the end of the week, that is going to get us through the end of the school year. We're not dealing with the underlying problem. What we as adults really need to understand, because the students do, and they're outmatching us at every step, we need to really fully understand that bullying is the most common form of violence in schools today. It's in every school. I interact with parents across the United States, Canada, England, even Australia. It affects everyone. And they're all asking the same thing. They're all asking for help. But here in the U.S., we've had studies that have been done that have said school violence is actually on the decrease, which is true, which is good. But if you look deeper into the data, you'll actually find that bullying is on the increase. Why the disconnect? Because people don't see bullying as violence. They're two totally separate things. To me, they're exactly the same thing. And bullying creates some of the violence that we have in our schools. I think of bullying as this cornerstone of all of the problems in our school. And you can look at this chart and say, well, that might be the demographic of the victim. And I'll tell you, no, that's the demographic of also the bully. If we don't extend ourselves and we help both sides of the equation, the outlook is not good for either. Down the bottom, you see bully-side, suicide. That's a suicide caused by an incidence of bullying. And that's on the rise, and we hear more and more about that in the news all the time. I wear bracelets for the students we've lost just here in Michigan, and I have a ton more that I have from across the United States. It's happening all the time. The big thing right now everybody's worried about is cyberbullying. We have to control cyberbullying. But actually, cyberbullying is just the tool to really do what they've always been doing. And if we don't tackle the bullying, We can't tackle the cyberbullying. That's why it took off. That's why it exploded. We couldn't handle what we had in school right now, and the students, they're more adept at the technology than we are as adults. Most of you have grown up with the technology. It's important to understand that dynamic. So we have to change our thinking. But a lot of people want exact definition of what bullying is. They want all the words. And the problem is, again, we're going back to the adults. The adults need the instruction. The adults need all those single words. When I talk to students, and also adults, bullying is all about this at its core. It's an abuse of power and control of one person or a group of people over another person or another group of people to get them to do something they don't want to do. The basis also behind bullying is that it is intentional. There is a sole purpose behind it to cause pain and consequence for somebody else. If you cause that pain and consequence for somebody else, as the bully, you know, I got him. It's not teasing. A lot of people think they're the same thing. We tease each other and we joke all the time with each other. But when we go out of our way to hurt somebody else, we've crossed that line into bullying. Adults may not get this, but I'll tell you what, I've talked with students get this. It's very simple. They understand it. So when someone comes over and says, hey, you can't sit with me unless you go do something over there, we want to empower the students to say, I don't need to sit with you today. Because they understand the underlying dynamic. And in the relationship, you know, you have a bully is someone who intimidates the weaker person. Very, very close to the definition of a villain. You know, someone who's wicked or malicious. They go out of their way. So in every story, what else do you need? You need a hero. You need someone to kind of step into the fray and step up for the underdog. Part of that hero are all of you. Because I'm confident in all my sessions that I do, a hero will rise. Could be one of you, could be four of you. Hopefully, it's a lot of you. I also use the Batman because Batman was my favorite superhero growing up. I didn't like Superman. He could do anything. Batman, he had his brains, he had his brawn, and he had his will to go out of his way to help other people. But I will tell you, the money and the toys didn't hurt. Plus the car. What a cool car. But he was human. He was human, and he went out of his way to help other people. But if you know the mythology of Batman, you know Batman was born of tragedy. Something happened to channel his energy in a certain direction. I talked about the wristbands, and I talked about students we lost. I want to talk about one right now. This is Matthew. Matthew was a popular young man in 8th grade. You know, he loved BMX biking. He loved skateboarding. He was artistic. He wrote poetry. He was on the honor roll. You know, he wanted to be an engineer at MSU. He wrote in his journal. You know, he's not an angel. He's also the same kid who hot glued all the drawers shut in art class before the teacher came in. He was your average kid. Average, everyday kid. Matt's last day of school in 2002, he was assaulted by upperclassmen as a welcome to high school hazing ritual because they thought it would be fun. He was lured from the house. He was restrained. He had eggs smashed on him. He had syrup poured on him. He was told, welcome to high school. This is how it is, Matt. You're not on top anymore. And if you tell anybody, we'll come back. A lot of the adults saw this as it was kids being kids. It was not a big deal. It had happened for years. What was a big deal to Matt? 40 days later, Matt took his own life. I come to sessions like this not to bring people down. I need to build people up because Matthew was my only son. So it's very personal for me, but it's also passionate for me because as a parent, when you go through a tragedy, you have two things. You either have a breakdown or you have a breakthrough. And you have that choice to make. All of you had a choice to make to come here today to do something, to learn something. It's important for you to take something, not just from my presentation, but from the presentations, every single one who's going to talk today. Take something. We're presenters. You are the implementers. You have to move forward. So my wife and I said, we will move forward. And I thought about, we need to raise awareness, to change attitudes, to change this culture. But how do we do that? That's a monumental task. Well, I'm fortunate. I work here at Michigan State University, and I have a lot of friends who are doctors and professors, and they have been tremendous mentors to me. But there was still kind of that spark that was missing, and I wasn't sure really kind of what it was. So I had to really think a lot about where I was going to take my life. And then those words came to me, and I really understood from one of the most wise voices in the universe, Master Yoda. Because what did Yoda say? He said,
you must unlearn what you have learned.
Okay? We've heard it, but think about it. This is one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite movies. You must unlearn what you've learned. You must unlearn that bullying is to be tolerated in ways sanctioned by adults. It is in ways not to be normalized any longer. We have to move beyond this. It's not what it used to be. And we put our kids in risk every day that we keep thinking that it is the same thing. We have to be the ones who start thinking outside the box. Look at old things in new ways. And I tell people, guess what? If you have that box, take all those things you used to know about bullying, put them in that box, wrap duct tape around it, and throw it away. You will be much better starting over because things have drastically changed, especially with technology. Change your way of thinking. So if we go back to our gentleman we left in mid-drift, I started thinking about all the different tools that we have in our communities. Fire, police, rescue, military, and the community themselves, and also the community of students. We have to talk with them about this. And what we have to do, anti-bullying, is really about building relationships. We have to build relationships with the people we have to work with to get the job done. It's a relationship from student to student, student to teacher, teacher to parent, parent to administrator, and administrator out to the general public. If everybody knows their goal, we can make better choices. And the adults can make better choices, then our students make better choices. And one thing I've seen over the last 8 years, students make tremendous choices if we give them the opportunity and we give them the power. And a lot of people don't want to give them the power. I spoke recently at a high school. I had 450 students sitting around me, and I asked them, I said, who has the power in the school? And they all looked at the principal. And I said, wrong. You have the power. I think the principal kind of looked at him real puzzled at me. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I finally got him under the wraps. But no, the students are wonderful. So also, I want you to unleash the hero within. What are you going to do with the information you learn here at these sessions today? Do something for somebody else. We do a lot for ourselves. But make it a conscious choice to do something for somebody else. Do one thing and apply it. And you'll be ahead of the game. Dr. King. These words echo in my ears ever since I started. In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Because if you're not willing to step in and step up, you're also part of that problem. But what Dr. King was really talking about is, even in the nomenclature we use today, is the bystander effect. And what we have to do is we have to activate all those people, not just to stand by and watch, but to become defenders. Step in, step up. See something, say something. Become a defender of that person who can't defend themselves. And the students are the ones that are doing it. And they're the ones who become the heroes among us. Like, I jumped a slide. These are students at Dakota High School. Started a Hero in the Hallway program. Students don these t-shirts, and they're there morning, noon, and the afternoon. Teachers also have these shirts. because they're building and changing that culture within the school, that there's somebody always there, somebody who's always being supportive. Started out with 23 students, now over 150 students. This is Megan. I met Megan a year and a half ago. I talked with her at her school, had 10 members of her fledgling peace team. They were just getting started. I just saw her last fall. They now have 50 members. In a few months, 50 more members. And they have peace lockers in the hallway and peace boxes in the office and in the library where students can let administration know what's happening. This young man in the purple on this side, his name is Kyle. Kyle emailed me out of the blue and said, I'm a dancer at the Gold School of Dance in Boston. We're going to be doing our year-end recital, and somehow we want to incorporate anti-bullying, which I thought was a great idea. Incorporate the message into the arts, and students will get it. I talked with the school's director, and they came up with some phenomenal routines centered around this. About bullying, about acceptance, and about tolerance. They've actually taken a lot of these dances now to international dance competitions, and they've won awards. The other thing about this too is 5 of these dancers, most that are here on screen, were also invited and performed on Dancing with the Stars when they did a segment about anti-bullying. Tremendously powerful, and they sold out all the shows in Boston. They took the show to New York and they sold it out again. We can get this message out. Very phenomenal. If you've heard about a movie coming out called Bully, last year, when you talk about a global community, last year a lot of the parents, we all got together to say, we need to do something to tell people, about the children we've lost. And we created a Stand for the Silent in one day, and we got 12 people in 12 states and 6 countries to come on board, and we did this within 3 days. And if you go see the movie Bully, actually, our event and others are in the final end of the film. So it's actually a really great film, and I've seen that. Real quick, bring it back to the Star Wars universe. This is Katie. Katie was bullied because she had a Star Wars thermos. And she was told Star Wars is for boys. Her mother blogged about this. And the entire Star Wars community, online community, came out in full force to support her, including Lucasfilm and including one of the young actresses from the Clone Wars television show. That's community. They didn't reach out, they empowered her. How many more of us are out here? They gave her a lot of power to make sure she walked back into school with that thermos. We can make a change, and we have to give it over to some of our students. I do believe from the day we're born, there's a hero inside every one of us. Don't wait for a tragedy or something to unlock your hero. Do something about it. Pick your own favorite hero. Could be somebody else. I have mine. It's Matt when he was 4. So for all of you today, take something from all of these sessions. And my charge to you is think outside the box. Oops. Clicker's jumping around. So my charge to you is really think outside the box, be the hero, and be the change. Thank you.